Chosen one, you are not watching this by accident, and you did not arrive here by chance. This moment has been arranged by divine appointment and perfect spiritual timing, set in motion by heaven itself. The same God who granted Solomon wisdom beyond measure has drawn you here because your spirit is ready to recognize what others overlook. You are standing at the edge of a sacred unveiling where ancient wisdom meets present obedience and where silent wealth begins to rise from unseen foundations. Chosen one, the richest and wisest king in history, did not build his legacy through noise or haste, but through hidden principles guarded by wisdom. These secrets were never meant for the careless or the impatient. They were reserved for those with discernment, for those who could carry increase without losing reverence. Today you are being called into that understanding. What you are about to hear is not merely information, it is alignment. It signals a season where sudden elevation, divine provision, and heaven-sent transformation move quietly but decisively into place. Anointed one, Scripture reminds us that wisdom is the principal thing and that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of true understanding, as written in Proverbs chapter 9, verse 10. You are being positioned to see that wealth formed in silence endures when loud gain collapses. This is the threshold where faith sharpens perception and destiny responds. Sometimes God's reminders do not arrive through explanation or sound, but through something steady and simple that anchors the soul. What has been quietly prepared below rests there like an altar, waiting without urgency. Chosen one, you are still here because heaven intends for you to hear this all the way through. What is unfolding now is not casual information, it is a sequence. Each secret Solomon carried is a gate, and gates must be opened in order. The seventh will not make sense unless the first has already settled in your spirit. This is why your attention is being held, not by force, but by alignment. Something in you already recognizes that this is not about noise, speed, or display. It is about learning how God builds wealth that does not collapse when the seasons change. Chosen one, the first secret Solomon reveals is this: wealth begins with wisdom. Before there was gold stacked in vaults, before there were palaces or trade routes or influence, there was an invisible foundation. Solomon understood that prosperity is never born in the hands first. It is born in the mind and in the heart. Scripture reflects this rhythm when it tells us that wisdom is the principal thing, and Solomon lived that truth long before he ruled in abundance. He did not chase money, he chased understanding, and money followed quietly. I have seen this play out in real life more times than I can count. I have watched people receive sudden income without wisdom and lose it just as suddenly. I have also watched others start with almost nothing, but because they learned to pause, to think, to ask, to listen, their lives began to expand slowly, and then all at once. Wisdom does not rush. Wisdom teaches you how to choose, and every financial outcome you see today is the echo of a decision made yesterday. Anointed one, Solomon would ask you the same question he forced himself to confront. What choices have you been repeating that are quietly shaping your financial future? Not dramatic mistakes, but small ones. Impulsive spending, avoiding learning, ignoring counsel. I remember seasons where I worked hard but stayed stuck, not because opportunity was absent, but because understanding was. The moment I stopped asking how fast and started asking how wisely, things began to shift. That is not theory, that is lived truth. Wisdom functions like a seed. You do not see it immediately, and that is why many people underestimate it. But once planted, it multiplies without noise. Solomon sought advice when others relied on ego. He listened when others rushed. He learned from mistakes that were not his own, And because of that, even small resources in his hands became instruments of legacy. Without wisdom, any salary, inheritance, or breakthrough eventually leaks away. With wisdom, even modest provision becomes durable. Chosen one. This is why silent wealth begins here. It is not flashy, it is not announced. It shows up as restraint when others spend recklessly. It shows up as patience when others chase shortcuts. It shows up as curiosity, learning, planning, and asking better questions. Wisdom teaches you how to spend before you spend, how to wait before you move, how to say no without fear. These are not spiritual ideas disconnected from life. They are the mechanics of prosperity.
Fear not,
Solomon's
for
insight
behold,
cuts
I
against
bring
modern
you good
urgency.
tidings of great
He would tell
joy,
you plainly
which shall
not
be
to seek quick riches, but to seek understanding first. Because once wisdom is in place, money stops being the target and becomes the outcome. It is the difference between being given a meal and being taught how to cook. One feeds you once, the other feeds generations. I have learned this the slow way. Every time I skipped understanding, I paid for it later. Every time I invested in learning, even quietly, it returned to me multiplied. Anointed one, ask yourself honestly how many financial wounds were not caused by lack of effort, but by lack of discernment. That realization is not meant to shame you, it is meant to free you. Poverty often survives, not because opportunity is missing, but because wisdom was ignored. Ancient warnings were already written, yet humanity keeps searching for shortcuts that never hold. Solomon is not condemning effort, he is refining it. Each decision you make writes a sentence in your financial story. Some write frustration because they are driven by impulse. Others write stability because they are guided by wisdom. Over time, those sentences become chapters, and chapters become legacy. This is how invisible choices become visible outcomes. This is how quiet understanding turns into tangible wealth. But Solomon did not stop at wisdom alone. Once the foundation was laid, he revealed another principle that protects what wisdom builds. A principle that feels uncomfortable in a loud world. The discipline of silence. Acting without announcing, building without display. Because wisdom that is spoken too early becomes vulnerable, and wealth that is exposed too soon attracts the wrong eyes. Chosen one. In the next movement, Solomon takes us deeper into the power of discretion, and it is there that the real separation begins. Chosen one. After wisdom is established, Solomon moves you into a discipline that most people resist because it feels counterintuitive in a loud world. Silence. Not absence, not weakness, but controlled restraint. Solomon understood something that modern culture constantly forgets. Not everything growing should be announced. Not everything blessed should be exposed. Scripture captures this rhythm when it says that even a fool is considered wise when he keeps silent. That is not flattery, that is protection. Anointed one, silence is not about hiding your life, it is about guarding your process. Solomon watched kingdoms rise and fall, and he saw that collapse rarely came from lack of resources. It came from vanity, from speaking too soon, from displaying unfinished work, from inviting opinions before alignment was complete.
For behold,
I have
bring
lived
you
this
good
lesson
tidings of
painfully.
great joy,
There were
which shall
seasons
be
when I
to
talked
all
too much
people.
about what I was building, and somehow the energy drained before the work matured. But when I learned to move quietly, momentum stayed intact. Solomon teaches that silent wealth is formed when no one is clapping, when effort is not posted, when plans are not debated in public. Noise attracts attention, but attention attracts interference. Silence, on the other hand, acts like an invisible covering. It keeps your vision intact until the timing is right. Think about it. A seed buried in the soil grows because it is hidden. Expose it too early, and it dries out. Chosen one. How many times have you announced something before it was ready? A plan, a goal, a breakthrough you sensed coming, and suddenly doubt, criticism, comparison, or delay followed. Solomon would tell you that it was not because the vision was wrong, it was because it was exposed too soon. Silence is not fear. Silence is strategy. In a world obsessed with visibility, Solomon's wisdom feels radical. But look closely at people who build enduring wealth. They are not loud during construction. They are consistent. They work while others perform. Silence allows focus. It conserves energy. It prevents envy from gaining access to your progress. This is not superstition. This is human psychology and spiritual law working together. I remember a season where I stopped explaining myself. I stopped defending timelines. I stopped announcing progress. And quietly, without pressure, things began to align. Opportunities arrived without being chased. Resources came without desperation. Silence created space for God to work without interference. That is what Solomon means when he teaches discretion. Anointed one, discretion does not mean isolation. It means selective sharing. It means not every listener deserves access to your vision. Solomon knew that premature exposure invites premature judgment, and judgment can kill momentum if you are not anchored. Silence gives your calling time to mature, so that when it is seen, it cannot be shaken. Solomon also understood that silence humbles the ego. When you stop performing, you stop needing validation. And when validation loses its grip, clarity increases. Many people lose wealth not because they lack wisdom, but because they crave recognition. They want to be seen winning instead of actually winning. Silence breaks that addiction. Chosen one. This second secret protects the first. Wisdom gives you direction. Silence preserves it. Together, they form the conditions necessary for the third secret to emerge. Because once wisdom is planted and silence is guarding it, Solomon introduces something that separates exhaustion from multiplication. The difference between working hard and working intelligently. Chosen one. Solomon now shifts from internal discipline to applied movement. And here is where many sincere people get stuck. They work endlessly, but they do not advance. They are faithful, but they are exhausted. Solomon saw this pattern long before modern burnout culture existed. He captured it in a simple image. If the axe is dull, more strength is required, but wisdom brings success. Anointed one. Effort without strategy is not noble, it is costly. I have lived this too. There were years when I believed that working harder was the answer. Longer hours, more effort, more sacrifice. But the results stayed small. When I finally stopped and learned, truly learned, how to sharpen my tools, everything changed. Not overnight, but decisively. Solomon is not discouraging work. He is refining it. Intelligent work asks better questions. Is this the right direction? Is this the right timing? Is this the best use of energy? Many people are exhausted not because life is heavy, but because they are swinging dull axes. Repeating routines without reflection, applying strength where wisdom is required. Chosen one. Think about how many years you have poured energy into something without recalibrating. Solomon invites you to pause, not quit, to sharpen, not abandon. The farmer who plans his planting reaps more than the one who scatters seed randomly. That truth applies directly to finances, careers, and callings. Strategy multiplies effort. Wisdom gives effort direction. In my own journey, The biggest shifts came not from doing more, but from doing less with clarity. I learned when to stop forcing, when to study, when to realign, when to release paths that looked busy but produced little. That was uncomfortable, but it was necessary. Solomon understood that kings do not outwork servants, they outthink them. Anointed one, intelligent work aligns effort with vision. It moves with intention. It chooses quality over speed. It understands that fatigue is often a signal, not a badge of honor. God does not ask you to burn out. He asks you to steward strength wisely. Solomon's wisdom here is deeply spiritual. It teaches surrender of ego. It requires admitting that strength alone is not enough, that learning is not weakness, that planning is not delay. When you sharpen your axe, you honor the work you are about to do. You respect the outcome before it arrives. Chosen one. This is why silent wealth grows steadily, while loud wealth collapses under pressure. Intelligent work builds systems that last. It creates margins. It multiplies impact. It frees time and preserves energy. Solomon understood that even the strongest force wears out without strategy, but even modest strength becomes powerful when aligned. As this third secret settles, you begin to see the pattern. Wisdom establishes the foundation. Silence protects the process. Intelligent work multiplies results. And from here, Solomon prepares you for something even more practical and protective, a way to guard against uncertainty itself. The principle of diversification. Chosen one. By now the work has become quieter, not because the promise faded, but because endurance has taken over where excitement once lived. This is the season Solomon understood deeply, the space where nothing looks dramatic, yet everything is being decided. The days feel ordinary, the progress feels slow, and still heaven is not late. It is deliberate. Anointed one, this is the part few talk about, the waiting after alignment, the stretch after obedience, the long middle where you know what was spoken, but you have not yet touched what was promised. Solomon did not escape this season, he lived it. Wisdom did not remove patience from his life, it required it. What he built quietly took time to mature, because anything built to last must pass through seasons that test resolve rather than faith. There are mornings when you wake up and nothing feels different, yet you still carry the weight of what God showed you. You go to work, you handle responsibilities, you show up again. That is not stagnation, that is cultivation. I remember seasons where I wondered if I misheard, not because the vision was unclear, but because the waiting was long. Those moments were not failures of faith, they were invitations to remain steady. Chosen one. Solomon teaches here without shouting. He understood that wealth that endures is gathered little by little, not in bursts, not in emotional surges, but through consistency when no one is applauding, daily decisions, repeated discipline, quiet faithfulness. This is where many abandon what was true because it no longer feels powerful. But truth does not require sensation to remain true. Anointed one, waiting is not passive. It is active trust under pressure. It is choosing to return to what you know when what you feel is unreliable. It is doing the small right thing again, even when the outcome feels delayed. Solomon watched people collapse not because they lacked ability, but because they lost patience. Haste does not just waste resources, it erodes judgment. I have learned that fatigue does not mean you are off path. Often it means you are deep in it. The body grows tired when the soul is being trained for endurance.
For behold,
the temptation in this season is to look for emotional highs to reassure yourself that God is still moving. But Solomon understood something quieter. Progress does not announce itself every day. Sometimes it accumulates in silence until suddenly it cannot be ignored. Chosen one. This is the discipline of constancy, showing up when enthusiasm fades, saving when it feels insignificant, learning when it feels slow, praying when it feels repetitive. Solomon knew that impatience destroys what wisdom builds. He warned that wealth gained hastily diminishes, not because speed is evil, but because character was not ready to carry what arrived too soon. Anointed one, think about how many things in your life were lost not because they were wrong, but because they were rushed. Relationships, decisions, opportunities. Waiting refines discernment. It strips away fantasy and replaces it with clarity. It teaches you how to trust process instead of impulse. There were seasons where nothing new happened outwardly, but inwardly everything was shifting. My habits changed, my thinking matured, my reactions slowed. Those changes felt small at the time, but they later became the reason I could hold what arrived. Solomon's wisdom is honest about this. Discipline is not glamorous, it is repetitive, and that is why it works. Chosen one. This is where silent wealth is truly formed, not when accounts rise, but when consistency is chosen without proof. The farmer waters the field even when the soil looks unchanged. That does not make him foolish, it makes him faithful. Every unseen act compounds. Every disciplined choice stacks quietly. Anointed one, there is a reason God often hides progress from your emotions. If you felt everything growing, you might interfere. You might rush. You might expose what is not ready. Waiting teaches restraint. It teaches you how to live without constant confirmation. That is maturity. I have noticed that faith is often steadied not through constant explanation or dramatic signs, but through simple, repeatable reminders that anchor the soul when emotions fluctuate. There is a quiet reminder resting below in the description or the pinned comment, placed gently, not urgently. Chosen one. And now, return your focus back here. Because Solomon does not leave you in waiting without purpose. He shows you that consistency is not about endurance alone, it is about preparation. The discipline you are practicing is not wasted energy, it is structure being formed so that when increase comes, it does not overwhelm you. Anointed one, small beginnings are not obstacles, they are filters. Many despise them and disqualify themselves. Solomon did not. He honored gradual growth because he understood that what grows slowly grows strong. If you remain steady while others quit, you become rare. And rarity attracts opportunity without chasing it. Chosen one. This season is not asking you to feel powerful. It is asking you to remain aligned, to continue without applause, to trust that what is being built will speak when the time is right. Solomon's wealth did not begin as spectacle. It began as stewardship. Hold your ground here, not with tension, but with quiet resolve. Because what is coming next requires a vessel that can sustain it. And this season, though silent, is doing exactly that. Chosen one. Now Solomon turns your attention to a law that offends fear and exposes trust. Generosity. Not as performance, not as loss, but as alignment with how heaven moves resources. Solomon observed something that markets still misunderstand. There are those who give and increase, and
Fear
those
not,
who withhold
for behold,
and quietly
I bring you
diminish.
good tidings of
This is
great
not
joy,
poetry,
which
it
shall
is
be
pattern.
to all people.
Anointed one, generosity is not first a financial act, it is a posture of the heart. I have watched this truth unfold in ordinary moments, lending time when I had little energy, sharing knowledge when it felt like giving away advantage, offering help without knowing if it would ever return. Again and again, Those moments became doors I could not have planned, not instantly, not loudly, but undeniably. Solomon understood that generosity breaks the grip of fear. When you hoard, you live anxious about loss. When you give, you declare trust. And trust is magnetic in the spiritual realm. Heaven responds to alignment, not accumulation. Giving does not impress God. It positions you to receive without corruption. Chosen one. This is why silent wealth grows in generous hands. Not reckless giving, wise giving, discerning generosity. Solomon did not teach excess. He taught flow. Water that stagnates becomes toxic. Water that moves stays fresh. Resources are the same. When they circulate, they multiply. Anointed one. Generosity also builds relationships that money alone cannot buy. Trust, favor, open doors. In Solomon's time, generosity strengthened alliances and stabilized influence. Today, it does the same. People remember how you showed up when nothing was guaranteed. Opportunities follow character more often than talent. I have seen people block their own increase by gripping too tightly, afraid that if they gave, they would run out. But Solomon reveals the opposite. Withholding closes paths, giving opens them. Not because generosity earns favor, but because it aligns you with abundance instead of scarcity. Chosen one. True generosity is quiet. It does not announce itself. Solomon valued giving without applause because recognition shifts the reward from heaven to ego. Silent generosity carries power because it keeps the heart clean. When you sow quietly, you are not negotiating outcomes, you are trusting process. This principle applies beyond money. Sharing encouragement, making introductions, teaching what you learned the hard way. Those acts return multiplied over time, not always from the same direction, often from places you did not expect. Anointed one, generosity trains you to hold wealth without being owned by it. It loosens attachment. It keeps you free. And freedom is essential for what comes next. Because Solomon knew generosity alone is not enough. Without discipline, even generous hands leak. Which brings us to the next foundation. Chosen one. Solomon now addresses the quiet force that sustains everything before it. Discipline. Not intensity, not motivation. Constancy. Wealth gathered hastily diminishes because impatience weakens structure. Solomon watched this repeatedly. Fast gain without discipline collapses under its own weight. Anointed one. Discipline is the part of faith that shows up when emotions do not. It is choosing consistency over excitement. I have learned this lesson slowly. There were seasons where small, repeated choices mattered more than any breakthrough. Saving modestly, learning regularly, saying no often. Those habits felt insignificant until they weren't. Solomon compared wealth to something gathered little by little. This is not discouraging, it is stabilizing. Discipline protects you from self-sabotage. It creates margins. It turns wisdom into practice. Without it, insight remains theoretical. Chosen one. Many people begin strong and fade.
Fear not.
Not
For
because the
behold,
vision was
I
wrong,
bring you good
but
tidings
because
of great
constancy
joy,
was absent.
which shall be to all
Discipline
people.
is staying when others quit, continuing when progress is invisible, trusting that repetition compounds. I have seen dreams fail not from lack of faith, but from lack of follow-through. Discipline is faith expressed in routine. It is spiritual maturity applied to daily life. Solomon understood that patience builds endurance, and endurance builds legacy. Anointed one, discipline also guards against shortcuts. It slows you down enough to notice traps. It keeps you grounded when opportunities appear too quickly. Wealth without discipline magnifies weakness. Wealth with discipline amplifies stability. This is why silent wealth lasts. It grows quietly, protected by habits no one applauds. Small beginnings honored daily become foundations that cannot be shaken. Chosen one. Discipline is not punishment, it is preparation. It is the container that allows increase to arrive without destroying you. Solomon knew that wisdom, silence, generosity, and strategy all collapse without this thread holding them together. And now, with discipline established, Solomon prepares you for the final alignment. Not a technique, not a habit, but the foundation beneath them all. The one that determines whether wealth becomes legacy or loss. Chosen one. Now Solomon brings everything to its root. Not money, not systems, not habits, but reverence, the fear of the Lord. This is the secret beneath every other secret. Without it, wisdom becomes pride. Silence becomes manipulation. Strategy becomes control. Generosity becomes image. Discipline becomes obsession. Solomon knew this, and that is why he placed this truth at the center of everything. Anointed one, the fear of the Lord is not terror, it is alignment. It is the awareness that God is the source, not the tool. It is knowing that wealth without reverence is unstable, no matter how large it appears. Solomon watched nations rise and fall, and he saw the same pattern repeat. When people forgot God at the height of abundance, collapse followed shortly after. I have seen this personally, moments where progress accelerated, but humility lagged behind. Those moments were dangerous. The fear of the Lord recalibrates the heart before success has a chance to corrupt it. It reminds you that you are a steward, not an owner, a carrier, not a controller, chosen one. Solomon taught that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, because reverence keeps wisdom clean. It keeps decision-making grounded. It protects against shortcuts that look profitable but cost integrity. Wealth built without spiritual alignment is like a palace on sand, impressive until the storm comes. Anointed one, this is where wealth becomes legacy. When money serves purpose instead of ego, when increase strengthens families instead of isolating them, when abundance deepens faith instead of replacing it. Solomon understood that having full storehouses but an empty soul is still poverty. The fear of the Lord also sharpens discernment. It slows impulsive decisions. It filters opportunities. It teaches you when to walk away, even when the numbers look good. I have avoided losses not because I was smarter, but because reverence made me cautious. That caution saved me more than boldness ever did. Chosen one. This foundation also keeps you teachable. When God is honored, correction is received. When correction is received, growth continues. Solomon remained wise because he stayed reverent. The moment reverence disappears, wisdom begins to decay. This is the difference between those who rise and remain and those who rise and vanish.
Fear not.
The fear of the Lord keeps your heart anchored when wealth tests your identity, and wealth will test it. Solomon knew this better than anyone. Chosen one. Now everything rests in your hands. Not the secrets themselves, but your response to them. Solomon revealed principles. He did not force outcomes. Wisdom without application remains dormant. Revelation without obedience fades quickly. Anointed one, you are not hearing this to be inspired for a moment. You are hearing it because a decision is being formed. Will you continue chasing speed, or will you choose alignment? Will you pursue noise, or will you build quietly? Will you trust discipline over impulse, reverence over pride? I have learned that transformation rarely happens all at once. It begins with one choice honored consistently. Solomon would tell you not to change everything today. He would tell you to choose one principle and live it faithfully. Wisdom compounds, alignment multiplies, time reveals fruit. Chosen one, you are not far from change. You are one aligned decision away, not one dramatic leap, but one anchored shift. This is how silent wealth begins. This is how legacy forms without announcement. Anointed one, heaven is not rushing you, it is inviting you. What has been spoken does not expire because of delay, it matures because of it. The question now is not what Solomon taught, it is what you will carry forward. Chosen one, what grows in silence endures in storms. Chosen one. We have come to the end of what Solomon revealed, but not to the end of what God is doing. What has been spoken here is not theory, it is seed, and seed only waits for alignment to begin its work. You are standing in your Kairos moment, your appointed time, where wisdom meets obedience, and heaven responds quietly but decisively. Anointed one, a supernatural transfer is already in motion, not rushed, not forced, but ordered. What God establishes in silence cannot be stolen by noise. What he builds through wisdom cannot collapse under pressure. As you walk forward, do so with reverence, gratitude, and calm expectation. The anointing does not require striving, it flows where alignment remains. Chosen one, remain faithful in small things. Remain steady when emotions fluctuate. Look ahead not with anxiety, but with gratitude for what is already forming beneath the surface. Legacy is being shaped, peace is being restored, provision is being positioned. If your spirit is bearing witness, you may leave a quiet word in the comments, share this message with someone walking a similar road, or stay connected here as these truths continue to unfold, all in their proper time. There is a simple reminder resting gently in the pinned comment or the description, prepared for moments when steadiness is needed more than explanation. Chosen one, may wisdom guard your steps, may silence protect your increase, and may the Lord establish the work of your hands as you move forward in peace.